3 months had passed since Ambassador Do-Jin returned from his failed mission. Earth continued to spin around its star, and humans continued their daily lives. Most people on the planet did not know about the Galactic Council's latest rejection. The government had decided long ago that it was better to let people focus on their own world, rather than worry about distant aliens who wanted nothing to do with them. But in the deep space monitoring stations scattered around Earth's solar system, people watched and listened to signals from far away. Captain Yoon Ji-woo commanded one of these stations. It hung in space between Earth and Mars, a small metal building filled with the most sensitive equipment humans had ever built. Ji-woo was a thin woman with long black hair that she kept tied back while she worked. She had been listening to space for 15 years, and she knew the normal sounds of the galaxy. Trade ships talking to each other, news broadcasts from alien worlds, the constant chatter of a civilization that spanned thousands of star systems. But today the sounds were different. "Captain," called technician Pak Nam-soo from his console, "I'm getting emergency signals from the Rigel sector." Ji-woo walked over to look at his screen. The Rigel sector was home to the Althorian people, a race of beings who looked like giant butterflies made of living metal. They were peaceful traders who sold beautiful art to other species. "What kind of emergency?" Ji-woo asked. "It's hard to tell," Nam-soo replied. "The signals are broken up, but it sounds like they're under attack." This was strange news. The galaxy had not seen a real war in over 300 years. There were sometimes small fights between planets over trade routes or mining rights, but nothing that would make an entire sector call for help. "Record everything," Ji-woo ordered, "and send a message to Earth Command. They need to know about this." But before Nam-soo could start recording, the signals from Rigel went silent. Completely silent. It was as if every Althorian in the sector had simply stopped talking at the same moment. "Technical problem?" Ji-woo asked. Nam-soo shook his head. "All my equipment is working fine, Captain. I think they're just gone." On Earth, the news reached Seoul Space Command Center within hours. Captain Lee Min-ho studied the reports with Dr. Park Soo-jin and Commander Kim Tae-ho. The three of them stood around a large table that showed a map of the known galaxy. "One day," Soo-jin said, pointing to the area where Rigel sector had gone silent, "an entire sector with 43 inhabited worlds, and they all went quiet in one day." Soo-jin was a small woman with short hair and thick glasses. She had spent years studying alien cultures, learning their languages and customs. She knew more about the galaxy than almost any other human. "Could be a natural disaster," Min-ho suggested. "Solar flares, asteroid impacts, some kind of plague. 43 worlds at the same time." Tae-ho shook his head. "That's not natural." Tae-ho was a big man with broad shoulders and hands that looked like they could crush metal. He had been a soldier before becoming the head of Earth's secret defense programs. When he spoke, people listened. "What do the other aliens say?" Min-ho asked Soo-jin. "That's the strange part," she replied. "The Galactic Council is not talking about it. No news broadcasts, no official statements. It's like they're pretending nothing happened." Over the next 2 weeks, more sectors went silent. The Vegan colonies, home to a race of aquatic beings who lived in floating cities. The crystal gardens of the Century system, where plant-like aliens grew living buildings. Each time, the pattern was the same. Emergency signals, calls for help, then nothing. Captain Yoon Ji-woo's station intercepted some of these final messages. She listened to the fear in alien voices as they described ships that came from nowhere. Ships that did not respond to communication attempts. Ships that simply began destroying everything they found. "They call themselves the Devourers," Ji-woo reported to Earth Command. "At least that's the closest translation our computers can give. The few survivors who escaped describe them as beings who consume everything. Not just food or resources. Everything." Dr. Choi Eun-seo joined the emergency meetings in Seoul. She was Earth's top military strategist, a quiet woman with sharp eyes who could look at any battle and predict how it would end. The government had asked her to study the reports from the lost sectors. "This isn't random destruction," she told the assembled officials. "The Devourers are following a pattern. They target the most advanced worlds first, the ones with the best technology and largest populations. Then they worked their way down to the smaller colonies. "What do they want?" asked Minho. "From what I can tell, they don't want anything," Yunseo replied. "They don't take prisoners. They don't steal resources. They don't try to communicate. They just destroy everything and move on to the next system." The room fell quiet as everyone considered what this meant. An enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be bought off or negotiated with, could only be fought. "How long before they reach the core systems?" asked General Nam Wu Jin, the highest-ranking military officer on Earth. Yunseo looked at the galactic map. "At their current rate, maybe 6 months, maybe less." This was when Ambassador Dojin received an unexpected message. It came through the same communication system the Galactic Council used to reject Earth's membership applications. But this time the tone was very different. The message was from Zeth Prime, the crystal insect who served as Speaker of the Council. But he did not sound arrogant now. His voice cracked with something Dojin had never heard from an alien before. "Fear." "Ambassador Dojin of Earth," the message began. "The Galactic Council acknowledges that humanity has certain capabilities that other species do not possess. In light of recent events in the outer sectors, we formally request that Earth provide military assistance to defend civilized worlds from an unknown threat." Dojin played the message for the emergency council meeting. The human leaders listened in silence as Zeth Prime described the attacks and begged for help from the species they had rejected just months before. "They're scared," said Taeho. "Good. We should help them," said Dr. Sujin. "Whatever these devourers are, they're a threat to all life in the galaxy, including us." "Should we?" asked Dojin. "They've spent 2 centuries telling us we're too primitive and violent for their civilized society. Now they want us to be primitive and violent on their behalf." General Wu Jin stood up from his chair. "Gentlemen, ladies, we need to face facts. These devourers aren't going to stop with the alien worlds. Eventually they'll come for Earth too. The question isn't whether we should fight. The question is whether we fight as part of the galaxy or by ourselves." "What kind of response are we talking about?" asked Minho. Taeho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We have weapons and tactics that the Council has never seen. Things we developed because they kept us isolated and we had to defend ourselves. Things they probably wouldn't approve of." "They called us primitive," said Dojin. "Maybe it's time. They learned what that really means. The decision was made to help the galaxy, but not in the way the Council expected. Earth would not send a few ships to support alien fleets. Earth would handle this threat the human way." Dr. Lim Hae-jin, Earth's top weapons designer, began preparing plans that had been locked away for decades. Weapons that human scientists had created and then decided were too terrible to use. But these were terrible times. The Galactic Council's request for help was answered 3 days later. Dojin's response was short and simple. "Earth acknowledges the Council's request for assistance. We will deal with this threat using methods the Council has deemed inappropriate for civilized beings. We recommend that Council forces stay out of our way." On alien worlds throughout the galaxy, the message was received with confusion and anger. How dare these primitive humans refuse to follow galactic military protocols? How dare they suggest that civilized beings could not handle their own defense? But in the outer sectors, where the Devourers continued their advance toward the heart of galactic civilization, a few alien survivors heard the message differently. They remembered stories about humans, stories about a species that had fought wars for thousands of years before reaching the stars, stories about beings who knew how to kill better than any other race in the galaxy. For the first time since the attacks began, some aliens felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. The Devourers had faced many species in their long journey across the galaxy. They had destroyed civilizations that were older and more advanced than humanity could imagine. They had never met an enemy they could not simply overwhelm with superior numbers and technology. They had never met humans. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wide like an ocean of metal and light. Thousands of alien beings sat in curved rows that went up to the ceiling. Their strange bodies came in all shapes and sizes. Some had 6 arms. Others had no arms at all. Some breathed air, Others breathed gas that glowed purple. But they all had one thing the same today. They all looked down at the human standing in the center of the room. Ambassador Kang Do-jin stood straight and tall in his dark blue uniform. His black hair was neat and his face showed no feelings, even though inside he felt angry. He held a small device in his hand that showed Earth's latest request. The same request humans had made for over 200 years. The request to join the Galactic Council as equals. Above him, the giant screens showed images of Earth, cities that reached toward the sky, ships that could cross space, art and music and science that humans had created. But the aliens in the room were not impressed. Many of them made sounds that Do-jin knew were laughs, even if they sounded like bird calls or machine noises. The speaker of the council was a Veltarian named Zeth Prime. His body looked like a giant insect made of blue crystal. When he spoke, his voice came out like the sound of breaking glass. Once again, Zeth Prime said, the humans come before us asking for membership. Once again, we must remind them why this cannot be. The room filled with more alien laughter. Do-jin felt his hands make fists, but he kept his face calm. Honored speaker, Do-jin said, his voice carrying across the huge room. Humanity has changed much in the past 50 years. We have ended wars on our planet. We have built cities that float in space. Our science has found cures for diseases that killed millions. We have art and music that moves the heart. You have what every child species has, interrupted Core Nexus, the trade commissioner. His body was like a snake made of metal with dozens of small arms along his sides. You have simple tools and simple thoughts, but you are still what you have always been, violent, angry, dangerous. Your species still fights wars among yourselves, added another voice from the crowd. This was Yilthara, whose people looked like walking trees with faces in their bark. Just 20 Earth years ago, humans killed other humans over pieces of land, over ideas, over things that do not matter. Do-jin wanted to explain that those were small conflicts, not real wars. That humans had learned to solve most problems with words instead of weapons, but he knew the aliens would not listen. They never listened. Your emotional responses are too strong, said Zeth Prime. When humans are angry, they break things. When they are sad, they cannot work. When they are happy, they make poor choices. This is not the way of civilized beings. We have controlled these feelings, Do-jin said. Our leaders make decisions with calm minds. Our people work together for the good of all. You lie to yourselves, Core Nexus said. His metal body made clicking sounds as he moved. Your own reports show that humans still feel anger when insulted, still feel fear when threatened, still feel love for family more than duty to law. These weaknesses make you unfit for galactic society. The room erupted in sounds that Do-jin knew meant agreement. Clicks and hisses and musical notes that all said the same thing. Humans were not welcome here. Do-jin looked around the room at the thousands of alien faces. Some looked sorry for him, but most looked disgusted, as if he was something dirty that had walked into their clean house. The Galactic Council has made this decision many times before, Zeth Prime announced. We vote now to confirm it once more. All in favor of maintaining the ban on human membership in the Galactic Council? Lights began to glow all around the room. Blue lights that meant yes. Do-jin counted them, even though he knew there was no point. 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. In the end, every single alien in the room voted to keep humans out. All opposed? Zeth Prime asked, but no lights appeared. Not one. The motion passes by unanimous vote, the speaker declared. The humans will remain banned from galactic civilization until such time as they evolve beyond their primitive nature. The aliens began to file out of the room, talking among themselves in their various languages. Do-jin heard some of their words translated by his device. They were making jokes about humans, about how long it might take for humans to become civilized. Some guessed 1,000 years. Others said never. Two Veltarian guards came to escort Dojin from the room. They did not touch him, but they made it clear he should leave. As he walked through the halls of the great station, Dojin passed windows that showed the stars outside. Somewhere out there was Earth, where 13 billion humans lived their lives not knowing that the galaxy still saw them as nothing more than smart animals. The ship that would take him home was small and plain compared to the sleek vessels the aliens used. It had been built by human hands with human metal, and it could only go as fast as human science allowed. The aliens had faster ships, but they did not share that technology with primitive species. As Earth grew larger on his screen, Dojin opened a communication channel to the surface. The face that appeared belonged to Captain Lee Minho, the director of Earth's Space Defense Force. Minho had short black hair and scars on his face from an accident in his younger days. His eyes always looked tired, like he carried the weight of the world. "I can see it in your face," Minho said before Dojin could speak. They said no again. "Unanimous vote," Dojin replied. "Not even one alien spoke in our favor." Minho nodded slowly. In the background, Dojin could see the busy control room of the Seoul Space Command Center. Dozens of people worked at screens and consoles, monitoring the space around Earth and the signals from distant stars. "Dr. Park Soo-jin wants to speak. With you when you return," Minho said. Soo-jin was Earth's leading expert on alien life and culture. She had spent her whole career trying to understand why the galaxy rejected humanity. "And Commander Kim Tae-ho has been asking for a meeting with the Global Defense Council," Minho continued. Tae-ho led the Human Defense Initiative, a secret project that most humans did not know existed. Do-jin understood what this meant. For 200 years, Earth had tried the peaceful way. They had sent diplomats and scientists and artists to show the galaxy that humans could be civilized. They had ended wars and cured diseases and built beautiful things. None of it mattered to the aliens. "Schedule the meetings," Dojin said. "It's time we discussed other options." The communication ended, and Dojin was alone with his thoughts. Outside his ship, space looked peaceful and quiet. But he knew that somewhere out there, alien civilizations traded goods and shared knowledge and built wonders together. And they did it all without humans. The aliens called humans primitive because they fought wars and felt strong emotions. They said humans were too dangerous for civilized society. Dojin wondered if they had any idea what humans were really capable of when they decided civilization was not worth pursuing. As Earth's blue and green surface filled his view, Dojin made a decision. He would give his report to the government, as always, but this time, he would also recommend that Earth stop trying to join the galaxy as friends. Perhaps it was time to make the aliens notice humanity in a different way. The landing was smooth and quiet. Dojin stepped onto the soil of his homeworld and looked up at the stars he could no longer see in the daylight sky. Somewhere up there, aliens were congratulating themselves on keeping the dangerous humans locked away on their little planet. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The Devourer fleet approached Earth's solar system like a black tide rolling across the stars. 3,000 ships of different sizes, all built for one purpose: complete destruction. They had crossed half the galaxy, destroying every civilization in their path. Now they came to claim another prize, but Earth was not like the other worlds they had conquered. Captain Shin Bo-ra waited in the command chair of the Soul Fire, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Her ship was one of 50 vessels spread throughout the solar system, each one invisible to enemy sensors thanks to technology the aliens had never bothered to develop. After all, why would civilized beings need to hide in the dark? Bo-ra was a small woman with scars on her hands from years of military training. She had been chosen to command the first wave of Earth's defense not because she was the highest-ranking officer, but because she understood something the aliens never had. Sometimes the best way to fight monsters was to become a monster yourself. Contact. Bearing 27 Mark IV, reported sensor operator Kim Hyun-soo. Lead elements of the Devourer fleet right on schedule. Through her ship's view screen, Bo-ra could see the enemy vessels. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek and deadly like knives made of metal and light. Each ship was larger than anything humans had built, armed with weapons that could burn planets to ash. "All ships, this is Soul Fire. Bora spoke into her communicator. Remember, we are not here to win a fair fight. We are here to make them hurt. The Devourers had fought many species. They had faced the crystalline fleets of the Vega Alliance with their shields that could stop any weapon. They had destroyed the living ships of the Bio-Federation, vessels that could heal themselves and adapt to any attack. They had crushed the robot armadas of the Machine Collective, armies that felt no fear and knew no mercy. But they had never fought humans. The first attack came without warning. Hidden mines that humans had scattered throughout the solar system suddenly activated, not to destroy Devourer ships, but to flood the area with blinding light and jamming signals. The enemy fleet found itself flying blind through a maze of obstacles they could not see. Now, Bora whispered. The human ships struck like wolves attacking a herd of cattle. They did not try to match the Devourer's ship for ship in honorable combat. Instead, they used every dirty trick humans had learned in 10,000 years of warfare. Lieutenant Colonel O.J. Sung led a boarding party onto a Devourer command vessel. His team moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, using weapons designed to cause maximum pain and terror. They did not try to capture the ship or take prisoners. They simply killed everything they found and moved on to the next target. The Devourers were used to enemies who followed rules. They expected their opponents to announce themselves, to give warnings, to show mercy to the wounded. Humans did none of these things. Dr. Bae Min-kyung had studied the Devourers for months, learning how their bodies worked and what made them afraid. The weapons her team had developed were not designed to kill quickly or cleanly. They were designed to make the enemy suffer, to spread fear through their ranks, to make them understand that they were no longer the hunters. Captain No Jung-min commanded a squadron of small, fast ships that darted between the massive Devourer vessels like insects stinging a giant animal. His ships were too small to carry heavy weapons, so they carried something else instead. Boarding torpedoes filled with human soldiers who fought with knives and explosives and bare hands when necessary. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The civilized races had fought their wars with clean energy beams and polite surrender protocols. Humans fought with nuclear fire and chemical weapons and tactics that made even their own allies uncomfortable to watch. "Sir," called weapons officer Park Suho from his station aboard the Soulfire, "the enemy is trying to retreat." Bora looked at the tactical display. The Devourer fleet had lost nearly a third of its ships in the first hour of battle. The survivors were trying to pull back to regroup, the way any intelligent enemy would do. But Bora had not come here to let them regroup. "All ships pursue and destroy," she ordered. "No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy." This was the moment when the Devourers realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had expected to find another civilized world defended by beings who valued honor over victory. Instead, they had found something that scared them more than any weapon. They had found humans who were no longer pretending to be nice. The pursuit lasted for days. Human ships chased fleeing Devourers across the solar system and beyond, hunting them down one by one. When a Devourer ship tried to surrender, the humans ignored the signals and destroyed it anyway. When enemy crews abandoned their vessels, human boarding parties followed them into the escape pods. Captain Lee Min-ho arrived with the main fleet just as the last Devourer ships were being eliminated. His Shadow Strike division had traveled across half the galaxy to reach this battle, and they found it was already over. "Casualty report," he requested as his flagship joined the other human vessels. 37 ships damaged, 12 destroyed, reported his aide, Lieutenant Yun So-jin. Total human casualties, 843 killed, 2,100 wounded. Min-ho nodded. Those were heavy losses, but considering they had just fought the enemy force that had destroyed dozens of star systems, the numbers were remarkably small. "Enemy casualties?" he asked. "Complete," So-jin replied. "No survivors detected." For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Devourers had been completely defeated. Not pushed back, not forced to retreat, but utterly destroyed down to the last ship and the last soldier. But Min-ho was not celebrating. He had read the intelligence reports. This had been only one fleet sent to test Earth's defenses. The main Devourer force was still out there, still carving its way through the galaxy toward the core worlds. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We pursue the main enemy force. No rest, no repairs, no mercy." This was when the galaxy began to understand what they had unleashed. News of the battle spread quickly through alien communication networks. The impossible had happened. Someone had not just survived a Devourer attack, but had completely destroyed the attackers. On the bridge of his flagship, Minho opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Zeth Prime, the crystal insect who served as speaker, but he looked different now. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been fear. "Captain Minho," Zeth Prime began, "we have received reports of your victory over the Devourer advance force. The Council wishes to coordinate." "No," Minho interrupted. "We tried coordination. You rejected our help and told us to take orders from your commanders. Now we do this our way." "But Captain, the rules of galactic warfare require—" "Your rules got half the galaxy killed," Minho said. His voice was calm, but there was something in his eyes that made the alien leader take a step back. "We don't follow your rules anymore." The communication ended. Around the galaxy, other alien leaders watched the recording and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. Dr. Park Soo-jin, watching from Earth, understood what was happening better than most. For centuries, humans had tried to be accepted by the galactic community. They had followed alien rules, adopted alien customs, tried to prove they could be civilized. But the Devourers had changed everything. Now humanity was no longer trying to impress anyone. They were simply doing what they had always done best, fighting wars and winning them by any means necessary. The human fleet moved out of Earth's solar system like a dark shadow spreading across the stars. They followed the trail of destruction. The Devourers had left behind, moving through systems filled with the wreckage of alien civilizations. But something strange began to happen as they traveled. Other ships started following them. Alien survivors who had lost everything to the Devourers began to join the human fleet, not as allies or partners, but as witnesses to something they had never seen before. They wanted to see what happened when monsters met monsters. Captain Han So-young, still monitoring enemy movements from her reconnaissance ship, sent regular updates to the fleet. The main Devourer force was larger than anything they had faced before. 50,000 ships, armed, with weapons they had stolen from every civilization they had destroyed. But the reports also included something else. For the first time since their campaign began, the Devourers were showing signs of caution. They had slowed their advance, sent out more scouts, begun to consolidate their forces. They had learned to be afraid. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Yun So-jin, "long-range sensors are picking up the enemy main force. Distance 6 light hours and closing." Minho looked at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet. By every logical measurement, the humans were outnumbered and outgunned. Any reasonable commander would retreat and try to find allies, build a coalition, develop new strategies. But Minho was not thinking like a reasonable commander. He was thinking like a human who had been pushed too far. "All ships," he announced, over the fleet communication system. "This is Captain Minho. For 200 years, the galaxy told us we were too violent, too primitive, too dangerous for civilized society. Today, we show them what dangerous really means." The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Thousands of alien beings sat in their curved seats, staring at the massive screens that showed feeds from across the galaxy. But no one spoke. No one moved. They all watched in complete silence, as something impossible happened in the darkness between stars. The humans were winning. For 3 weeks, the alien leaders had watched Captain Lee Minho's fleet chase the Devourers through system after system. They had expected the humans to be destroyed quickly, just like every other species that had tried to fight the invaders. Instead, they witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare and civilization. The humans did not just fight the Devourers. They hunted them. On the main screen, the current feed showed the Kepler system, where the Devourer fleet had tried to make a stand around the system's gas giant. The humans had not bothered with traditional battle formations or honorable single combat. Instead, they had done something that made even the most hardened alien warriors look away from their screens. Commander No Jung-min had led a strike force directly into the gas giant's atmosphere, using the crushing pressure and toxic gases as weapons against the enemy. Devourer ships that had survived the attack of 100 civilizations were torn apart by forces they could not fight or understand. "How?" whispered Velthara, one of the few surviving members of the Crystal Alliance. "How do they think of such things?" Dr. Park Soo-jin, watching from Earth's monitoring station, could have answered that question. Humans thought of such things because they had been thinking of such things for thousands of years. Every human war, every conflict, every battle had taught them new ways to turn the environment itself into a weapon. But the aliens in the council chamber were learning this lesson too late. The feed switched to another system, where Captain Shin, Bora's squadron, had cornered a group of Devourer ships near a dying star. Instead of engaging in ship-to-ship combat, the humans had somehow destabilized the star itself. The explosion that followed destroyed not just the enemy fleet, but everything else in the system. "They destroyed an entire star system," said Cornexus, his metallic snake body trembling with shock. "Just to eliminate a few hundred enemy ships." Zeth Prime, the crystal insect who served as Speaker of the Council, finally found his voice. "They are not fighting a war," he said slowly. "They are committing genocide." But even as he spoke those words, Zeth Prime knew they were not entirely true. The humans were not randomly destroying everything in their path. They were methodically, systematically eliminating every trace of the Devourers, while leaving alien settlements untouched. They were fighting with precision and purpose, even when their methods were terrible to watch. The screen changed again, showing a feed from Captain Han So-young's reconnaissance ship. She was following the human fleet as it moved deeper into Devourer-controlled space, and her reports painted a picture that no one in the council could have imagined. "The enemy is in full retreat." So-young's voice came through the speakers. "They are abandoning entire sectors, pulling back toward their home systems. For the first time since this war began, the Devourers are running away." This was the moment when many of the aliens in the chamber began to understand what they were really watching. The species they had called primitive and violent for centuries was doing something that all their advanced civilizations combined had failed to do. They were not just stopping the Devourers, they were driving them back. On Earth, General Nam Woo-jin received regular reports from the fleet. Each one brought news that should have been cause for celebration, but instead filled him with a cold satisfaction that had nothing to do with joy. "The Rigel sector has been cleared of enemy forces," reported his aide. "Captain Minho estimates that 90% of Devourer assets in that region have been destroyed." Woo-jin nodded and marked another section of the galactic map in green. Slowly, steadily, the red marks that indicated Devourer control were being replaced by human victories. But the cost was becoming clear too. The human fleet was changing. Months of constant warfare against an enemy that showed no mercy had hardened them into something that barely resembled the peaceful explorers Earth had once hoped to send to the stars. They had become exactly what the aliens had always accused them of being: violent, ruthless, and utterly without compassion for their enemies. Dr. Lim Hyejin's weapons reports grew more disturbing each week. The humans were not just using the terrible devices they had brought from Earth. They were adapting Devourer technology, learning from their enemies, and creating new weapons that combined alien science with human cruelty. "They are becoming monsters," she told Woo-jin during one of their private meetings. "I fear what they will be like when they return home." "If they return home at all," Woo-jin replied. "The deeper they go into enemy territory, the less likely they are to come back unchanged." But the campaign continued, and with each victory, the galaxy's understanding of humanity shifted a little more. The turning point came at the Battle of Zirion Prime, where the Devourers had established their largest forward base. The alien observers expected to see a conventional siege with human ships surrounding the planet and demanding surrender. Instead, They watched Lieutenant Colonel O.J. Sung lead a boarding assault directly onto the planet's surface. His soldiers did not try to capture strategic positions or negotiate with enemy commanders. They simply began systematically hunting down every devourer on the planet, using tactics that had been developed in the darkest chapters of human history. The battle lasted 6 days. When it was over, Zerion Prime was silent. Captain Ko Hyun-woo, commanding the Human Occupation Force, sent a message to the Galactic Council. His face appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, broadcast on every major communication network. He looked tired. His uniform was stained with things the aliens did not want to identify. Behind him, they could see the twisted remains of what had once been the Devourer's most important stronghold. To the members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice calm and steady. And to all the civilized species of the galaxy, you called us primitive. You said we were too violent for your society. You banned us from your councils and your trade routes because you feared what we might do. He paused, and the camera showed more of the devastation behind him, alien technology that had been turned into weapons. Devourer corpses arranged in patterns that spoke of human artistic sensibilities applied to the business of death. You were right to fear us, he continued. We are everything you said we were. We are violent. We are ruthless. We solve problems with force because force is the only language some enemies understand. The council chamber remained silent. Every alien leader hung on his words. But when the monsters came for your children, when your civilized solutions failed and your advanced technology proved worthless, who did you call? When your peaceful ways led only to slaughter and your diplomatic protocols resulted in genocide, who stepped into the darkness for you? Ko Hyun-woo stepped closer to the camera. For the first time, the aliens could see his eyes clearly. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much and done too much, but who regretted none of it. We did not ask for your approval, he said. We did not wait for your permission. We did what needed to be done because you could not do it yourselves. And now, when the galaxy is safe again, you will have to live with the knowledge of what that safety cost. The transmission showed more images from the battle. Human soldiers moving through alien corridors like death itself. Weapons that turned living beings into something less than memory. The systematic elimination of an entire species that had terrorized the galaxy for months. The Devourers are finished, Ko Hyun-woo announced. Their fleets are destroyed, their bases captured, their soldiers dead. The threat to galactic civilization has been eliminated by the very beings you deemed unworthy of that civilization. He looked directly at the camera one final time. Sleep well in your safe worlds, knowing that monsters stand guard in the darkness. And remember, when you look down on humanity for what we are capable of, that we became capable of it for you. The transmission ended. The screens went black. The Galactic Council chamber remained silent for exactly 1 minute and 37 seconds. Then slowly, aliens began to leave their seats and walk toward the exits. They did not speak to each other. They did not discuss what they had seen. They simply left, carrying with them the knowledge that their safe, civilized galaxy had been preserved by beings who were neither safe nor civilized. Within days, the ban on human membership in the Galactic Council was quietly removed from the official records. No vote was taken, no debate was held. It simply disappeared as if it had never existed. But the humans did not immediately return to Earth. Captain Minho's fleet remained in the outer sectors, patrolling the regions where the Devourers had operated. They had become something new during their campaign, something that could not simply return to peaceful exploration and diplomatic missions. They had become humanity's guardians against the darkness between stars on Earth. Dr. Park Soo-jin watched the feeds from the outer rim and wondered what they had unleashed. The humans who had left Earth were explorers and soldiers and scientists. Ones who would eventually return were something else entirely, the end. The Nexari homeworld had been silent for 3 days. Captain Han So-young read the report again, hoping the words would somehow change, but they remained the same. 8 billion Nexari, gone. Their great floating cities that had danced between The clouds for 1,000 years were now twisted metal falling into dead oceans. So Young commanded Earth's deep space reconnaissance ship, the Soul Wind. It was a small vessel designed to hide in the darkness between stars and watch things that happened far away. For 6 months, she and her crew had been tracking the Devourer fleet as it carved a path of destruction through the galaxy. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park Dong-wook from his sensor station. "I'm picking up refugee ships leaving the Zentari system." So Young looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. The Zentari system was only 2 jumps away from the Nexari homeworld. If refugees were fleeing, it meant the Devourers were moving faster than ever. "How many ships?" she asked. "Hundreds," Dong-wook replied. "Maybe thousands. They're running in every direction, not even trying to stay together." This was what happened now when the Devourers approached a system. The aliens would try to evacuate their people, but they had nowhere to go. The Devourers moved too fast and covered too much space. Most of the refugee ships would be caught and destroyed before they could reach safety. So Young had watched this happen dozens of times. Each time, she had to fight the urge to order her ship forward to help, but her orders were clear. Watch and report. Do not engage. Earth needed to understand the enemy before deciding how to fight them. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them the Devourers have increased their speed again. At this rate, they'll reach the galactic core in 8 weeks, not 6 months." On Earth, the news arrived in the middle of another emergency meeting. General Nam Woo-jin read the report aloud to the assembled leaders. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped the paper tightly. 8 weeks, he said. "That means they'll be at Earth's doorstep in 10 weeks, maybe less." Dr. Choi Eun-seo had been studying Devourer tactics for months. She stood at the front of the room next to a large screen showing the galaxy. Red marks indicated systems that had gone silent. There were dozens of them now, like a disease spreading across the stars. "I've analyzed every report we have," she said. "The Devourers aren't just random destroyers, they're systematic. They target the most advanced civilizations first, stripping away their technology and knowledge before moving on to easier targets." "Why?" asked Commander Kim Tae-ho. "Because they're learning," Yoon-seo replied. "Each species they destroy teaches them something new. Better weapons, better tactics, better defenses. By the time they reach the core worlds, they'll be stronger than any force the galaxy has ever seen." Ambassador Do-jin had been quiet during most of these meetings, but now he spoke up. "The Galactic Council still refuses to coordinate with us. They insist on handling this through proper diplomatic channels." This was the most frustrating part of the whole situation. The aliens were facing extinction, but they still would not fully cooperate with humans. They sent polite requests for assistance, but they would not share intelligence or coordinate battle plans. They still saw humans as junior partners at best. "Their latest message suggests we provide support for their main battle fleet," Do-jin continued. "They want us to take orders from alien commanders who have never fought a real war." Tae-ho laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. "Support role. After we're the only species in the galaxy that actually knows how to fight, they want us to play support." General Woo-jin stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of Seoul spreading across the horizon. 13 billion people lived on Earth, and most of them had no idea that death was coming from the stars. "What do our deep strike teams report?" he asked. Dr. Lim Hye-jin opened a folder marked with security seals. She was in charge of Earth's most secret weapons projects, the ones that even most government officials did not know about. "The Shadow Strike Division is ready," she said. 12 ships, fully equipped with our most advanced stealth technology and our most effective weapons systems." Everyone in the room knew what she meant by effective. These were not the clean, civilized weapons that other species used. These were weapons designed by humans who understood that sometimes winning meant doing things that nice people did not want to think about. "The Galactic Council would not approve," said Do-jin. "The Galactic Council is about to be extinct," replied Woo-jin. "I think we're past worrying about their approval. The decision was made that day. Earth would fight the Devourers, but they would do it the human way. No support roles, no alien commanders, No following galactic rules of warfare that had been written by species who had never faced real extinction. Captain Lee Min-ho was chosen to lead the mission. He would command the Shadow Strike Division and 12 of Earth's best ships. Ships that looked small and crude compared to alien vessels, but carried weapons that could crack planets and soldiers who had trained for this moment their entire lives. The night before the fleet left Earth, Min-ho sat in his quarters aboard the flagship Soul Vengeance. Through his window he could see the other ships of his command. Each one was painted black to help it hide in space. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a city, and crews who knew how to use it. His personal communicator chimed. It was a message from his daughter, Minji, who worked as a teacher in Busan. She did not know about the Devourers or the coming war. She just wanted to wish her father good luck on another routine patrol mission. "Be safe, Dad," her recorded image said. "I know you can't tell me where you're going, but wherever it is, come home safe." Min-ho smiled and touched the screen. If his mission succeeded, his daughter would never know how close she had come to losing everything. If it failed, there would be no Earth for him to return to anyway. The next morning, the Shadow Strike Division left Earth's solar system. They did not take the normal space lanes that merchant ships used. Instead, they followed routes that only humans knew about, paths through dangerous regions of space that other species avoided. As they traveled, more reports came in from Captain Han So-young's reconnaissance ship. The Zentari system had fallen. The crystal cities of Vega Prime were burning. Refugee ships scattered like leaves in a storm, most of them destined to be caught and destroyed by Devourer pursuit craft. But something else was happening too. Some of the alien survivors were starting to ask questions. Why had the Galactic Council been so unprepared for this threat? Why were their great fleets being defeated so easily? Why had they refused help from the one species that actually knew how to wage war? On Altair Station, one of the galaxy's major trade centers, a group of alien merchants held a secret meeting. They represented a dozen different species, all of whom had lost homeworlds to the Devourers. "The Council has failed us," said Velthara, a crystalline being whose people had once ruled 3 star systems. Now she was the only one of her kind left alive. They spent so long avoiding conflict that they forgot how to fight when conflict came to them. The humans offered to help, added Zix Connell, whose aquatic people had built the most beautiful underwater cities in the galaxy. Cities that were now cold tombs at the bottom of poisoned oceans. The Council refused to take their offer seriously. "Because the Council still thinks we're living in peaceful times," Velthara replied. "They can't accept that sometimes peace must be defended with violence." These conversations were happening on dozens of worlds as the reality of the situation became clear. The civilized galaxy was not equipped to handle an enemy that did not follow civilized rules. They needed someone who understood that in war, nice people finished last. They needed humans. But by the time this realization spread through alien society, it might be too late. The Devourers were less than 7 weeks from the core worlds. The Council's main battle fleet was gathering near the Procyon system, preparing for what they hoped would be a decisive confrontation. Captain Min-ho read these reports as his fleet moved through dark space toward their target. The aliens still thought this would be a normal battle, fought according to normal rules. They thought they could line up their ships and exchange fire until one side retreated. They had no idea that Min-ho's orders were much simpler. Find the Devourers, kill them all. Use whatever methods were necessary. Show no mercy, because none would be given in return. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of when they stopped trying to be civilized. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Devourers continued their advance, unaware that they were about to meet an enemy unlike any they had faced in their long history of conquest. An enemy that had been preparing for this war for 10,000 years.